Welcome to episode 8 of the Last Pack Podcast. I'm your host, Matt, here with my host, Joel. What's happening?
Man, I don't know why that question always catches me by surprise, but
Same thing every week, man.
no, I think just following some PWCC auctions, following a whole bunch of content on YouTube, watching some drama unfold as things get a little bit ugly, a little bit around. So I think that's been kind of entertaining and sad at the same time. But
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on with me. How about you?
No, I hear you on that. I think there's definitely like a sense of people kind of going at each other a little bit more right now, and just overall like the conversation of the market going down, like people really like dig in sides and have takes about it. And when there's people's collections involved, it's just people getting passionate about it. So I know what you mean. I've been watching a lot of that. But cards for me, I've been just doing my thing, selling stuff on eBay. Got my NBA G League box sets in. I ripped one of those, just kind of like divvying it out and selling them all on eBay. So that's kind of been fun. Just got them yesterday. And beyond that, I sent some stuff to run in PWCC weekly, and then just kind of been thinking a lot about the hobby and all these conversations that people are having right now. So it's definitely an interesting time to be in it.
Yeah, no, I'll say that for sure. I think so many people are thinking about, okay, do I stick this out? Do I, just sell off everything and whatever and go from there? It's a really weird time. I think it's funny as I talk about with some of my buddies. I think my general take is I've been in this long before the boom and with cards, and I just don't ever see this like not being a part of me. So I'm just gonna keep on doing what I'm doing. But I guess how I approach buying and selling is gonna change, and it just is what it is. But as far as my involvement, I'll still be here, and I don't see that changing.
Yeah, I mean, we're all finding different outlets for how to get our collecting bug, buying bug, and just being cautious right now seems like most people feel that way. But it does get a little bit demoralizing to watch a lot of these big auctions just keep getting filled with these high-end cards that just keep going down and down and down. Golden did have a vintage auction end this past weekend, but it was all vintage. It was a vintage elite auction. They did sell a Wagner for 3.72 million. It was a PSA 1.5, and the exact same copy sold in May of 2021 for like 2.28 million. So there's a couple cards out there still doing well.
I mean, that's a significant card. To me, the Honus Wagner almost represents cards in general for me because as a kid, that was the card. I think I brought this up in a previous episode. Was the $100,000 mark, and thinking about Honus Wagner being passed from celebrity to celebrity. So I mean, pretty cool.
Yeah, it is, but it is also like I think it's almost a little bit annoying for people right now because the market continues to decline, and as it does, naturally, like auction houses, all they're gonna do is highlight these like crazy uber high end. Oh, record sale, and it's like people feel like they're only highlighting the good when in reality most stuff is just getting destroyed. So
I mean, as long as they're not lying. I mean, to me, it's like, why would they? If I'm marketing my company, right, or whatever it is, I want to say the good things about it. Like, what's the point of me saying that these things are down?
Oh yeah.
Or,
No, I'm not hating on them. Like,
I don't know. It sounds like you're hating a little bit.
No. Do they want people to be like, record sale for worst ROI in a year at our auction house?
I don't know. I think so. That's a good thought, though. How should they approach a card going down? I don't think it's their job to say that things are selling low. I mean, did they ever say that this card sold lower or this piece of memorabilia sold lower than before?
No, I think the rub that people have is a lot of the stories they're told about how their card's going to get marketed and how much the auction house expects the card to sell for. And then when those expectations aren't met, the people kind of like freak out and get outraged.
Yeah.
Which really like it's your own fault for like believing that story of what somebody's telling you. It's like anything. Like they want to get your card because they want to make the money off of your sale, and yeah, they do better when it sells for more. But like at the end of the day, they're just collecting their fee and moving on. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
if you believe what some auction house is telling you your card's going to sell for, then like don't, and do your own research and know that there's risk involved when you send anything to auction.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I remember when I sold with Golden, I had a really great experience selling with them, but then after that, some of the other cards I sent, it just seemed like when you get a card that's not the top tier in Golden, it just gets lost in the shuffle. There's just way too many. And so I have a person I work with at Golden who reaches out to me asking if I want to sell anything else. I'm like, I think I'm okay for now. Because after that, I
Yep.
kind of like washed out. I felt like I gave up some good cards. On the plus side, I put it into another nice item, albeit that's probably way down at this point too as well. But um, it's it's hard because I felt like when I was working with the person I worked with at Golden, yeah, I think he would talk up certain cards. He like some of my Yana stuff I sent there. He told me like, oh, this can I see this doing really well. I see my clients really liking a piece like this. Guess what?
Yeah.
They did not like it. Apparently,
Right.
they didn't like it that much because I would
Yep.
have preferred keeping the card for what it sold for by far.
Yep.
But there, it's. I guess you don't know what you get completely, and you're right. I think kind of like it was fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice,
Yep.
shame on you. Wait, shame. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yes.
Uh,
No, but we're still in this phase where like a lot of this high end stuff is still getting sent over and over and over to these houses. So um, I know you and I both glanced at the PWCC premiere, which ends in like a week and a half, and it's just loaded. Like so many incredible cards, and yeah, just kind of scares me to see all of that again in one auction. And to me, that's almost going to be like the measure of when there is some sort of stabilization, is some measure of like certain cards or certain segments of cards not showing up anymore, and basically just auction houses having less stuff to auction off month after month. That to me would be like, okay, people like aren't just like dumping stuff anymore. We've kind of gotten to this like equilibrium where the people that have bought the cards at these auction houses over the last whatever period of time it's going to be actually are keeping them, and they're not just trying to recycle them over and over.
Yeah, I think that comes in this period of time. So I mean, I'm looking at this as an opportunity for myself to look for some items, and what if anything hits a range I'm happy with. I'm trying to keep some cash ready for that. So that's kind of my goal. I still think that there's an opportunity in this time,
Yeah.
but I'll wait for something really nice.
Yep. Don't feel forced. That's what I catch myself sometimes. I get time prepping. I'm going through like a PWCC weekly auction, and those are like overwhelming. There's like 8,000 cards. I'm like, oh, I'm saving all these cards to do research on, to bid on. And then I compile this huge list, and I'm like, what am I like? Why do I really want this? Do I care? Do I need to take the time to bid? And for most cards now, the answer is no, because there's going to be another one in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But
Wow. I'm seeing
anyway,
just
oh,
really
don't go
quick.
ahead.
I know this topic's not really. We've covered Metal Universe champions in the past.
Yep.
And I think when we were talking about before, boxes what 700 to 800 range.
Are we under 500 now?
I mean, as far as what you can get from like a dealer net or there's sell offers for around 450 up to 500 sitting out there. So
Yeah.
that's kind of pushing that range that I was starting to get really interested in. I guess I want to see it get a little more interesting.
Yeah. Well, like I've said, Black Friday, it's coming up soon, and there could be some wax deals that we haven't seen for like pretty much since I came back in, like for 4 years or more.
That's crazy.
So I've heard people talk about, oh, Blowout used to have these awesome Black Friday deals, and I'm like, I've never seen that.
Yeah, Blowout used to actually want to sell wax.
Yeah.
To hoard it.
That'd be an interesting conversation to see the behind the curtain at one of those like big three. And obviously they wouldn't talk about it on record, but to hear like, okay, what are you guys like? Do you guys have way too much inventory? What's like the feeling like? Because they probably have a as good of a pulse as anyone of like how much money is getting spent in the hobby and like where it was at the peak and like where it is now and how much it's declining. Um, they've got to be one of the best barometers for that. So,
Oh yeah, no, and I think we might be able to get some information from them if we approach them. So something we can think about.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. News and industry topics this week. The big one that I think most people have talked about is yet again another decrease in the price of grading. PSA announced that they're going to move their bulk rate from $22, which they had just lowered a few weeks ago, down to $18 for bulk. They're estimating this is 120 to 150 day turnaround time, and you have to have a minimum of 25 cards per order. But the $18 is the price point that they had for the Collectors Club special for the National. So really kind of getting to that point where, $15 maybe by the end of the year, who knows? But there's clearly a race right now to be the most competitive. And with that, SGC came back the next day. They said they were lowering their price because they were still at $30 and they've lowered it. It's kind of tiered based off of how many cards you send. So if you're sending a huge order of 50 cards or more, you can get down to that $18 a card level, just like PSA. And their benefit is it's to me threefold. The first thing is it's a 5 to 10 day business turnaround. So just not even close to what PSA can offer there. There's no upcharges for any cards after the year 2000, and they don't charge extra for an auto grade. So definitely some benefits there. And clearly they see the writing on the wall that if they're going to remain relevant, they need to be close to the dollar point that PSA is at. So what did you think kind of just seeing both PSA and then SGC's response to PSA this week and the dialogue that's gone on around grading?
It's funny because who's missing from this conversation?
Yeah.
BGS with no response. But SGC, I mean, I handed to Pete. His name's Pete, right?
Peter, I think.
Peter. Yeah. Peter. He acted fast. And yeah, you're right. The big advantage there is the 5 to 10 days. You think about that. So between 90 to 120 days. So essentially, you're saying that in the time that you get your SGC batch, you could probably turn over 6-7 batches of SGC cards by the time one PSA batch finishes. So it's really about what game are you playing? You're playing the max value for the cards you have. Are you playing the acquire as many cards as possible, grade as much, flip as much? And so I think that's the difference between the two strategies. And I don't know. I think it's SGC made a great move there because the fact is they built up the capacity for it. And I think that in the short term, when people are moving a bunch of raw, they're going to be the recipient of a bunch of people looking to flip. Because I think even as the market is kind of in this tumultuous time, there's a lot of people still in this quick flip game. And with that, quick flip needs quick grading.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I guess for me personally, I just haven't figured out if you want to do that kind of quick turnover grading through SGC, what ultra modern cards seem to sell better in an SGC slab. I just don't really know. Like sometimes I know from just looking at stuff on eBay, and I haven't done enough data analysis to say this definitively, so this is anecdotal, but there's times where I see, SGC 9.5s sell like a PSA 9, and it's pretty difficult to get an SGC 10. So I guess maybe if the 9.5 is still, you're confident that in volume you're going to get a premium over raw and the amount of money that you've put into the grading, it's still worth it. But just for me, I haven't figured it out. Have you done any kind of research into this, or have you used SGC enough to kind of know?
I haven't used them as of late because of the fact that it took me such a long time to just churn through the cards I had of SGC. That and mainly I've been using for cards I just want it in the slab, and I anticipate most people probably might crack those and go the PSA route on some of the cards that they got from me.
Yeah.
Whatever it is for the most part. Um, so I guess for me, I think the way I approach cards right now and the cards that I'm buying, I think in general I would just lean towards going to PSA and waiting the 90 to 120 days to get them back.
Yeah.
But I'm not in that constant turn and flip. But I do think the way wax is going right now, with wax coming down, so the new products actually being a little bit more reasonable priced than some of the other products that have come out. I mean, maybe even with some of this chrome stuff that recently came out and logo factor, maybe people want to grade some of this stuff out of there because you are getting like a lot of those SP rookies and like. So being able to get a Julio and be able to actually get that in a PSA 10 or even SGC 10 short term, I think cards like that Julio logo factor and SGC 10 might do really well right now. Because I think for hot prospects or hot rookies, I should say, that need people want to know they're getting a high quality card. That's what it's good for. But I think you're right. Like a lot of the mid quality stuff, you have to really be confident it's going to do well to make it worth your even $20 on it right now. I think to grade it.
Yeah, like if I had a Cade Cunningham Prism rookie, just base card, should I even mess around trying to get a 9.5 with SGC, or should I just send a bulk PSA $18 and wait?
That's a really good question and a good card to use for that, because my instincts right off the bat would be like, I'm just going to go PSA because I don't see Cade as a short-term project.
Yeah.
But I wonder.
Because then you have the other aspect of, well, by the time you get it back, how big is the pop going to be between the major grading companies? And at that point, was it just better for you to grade the card SGC, get a little bit of a premium, hopefully getting a SGC 9.5, maybe a 10, and then just moving on? That I don't know. Because I would say like his Prism base rookies raw might be like a $10 or $15 card. So then you're paying $18 more. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it looks like an SGC 10 can pull as high as $115, and a PSA 10 pulls like 160. So actually, that difference is not huge.
What about an SGC 9.5? See any?
Ooh, let's see.
Because that's more, to me, just in my experience with SGC, it's you seem to get a lot of 9.5s.
Yeah, it looks like it could be $43.
Yeah.
So big drop off.
Yeah, I mean, you may have $50 though. No, see, yeah,
you're right there. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, if you pick up the card for $10 and you grade it for 18,
yeah,
maybe
sell on eBay for 40 to make like $2.
I was gonna say hopefully sell for 50, but yeah, maybe that's tricky. It's tricky. Then again, you get a PSA 9, and what's a PSA 9 gonna be worth in 4 months when you get the card back?
Yeah,
is it gonna be worth $30, and then all of a sudden
it's worth $26 now?
Okay, so yeah, it's gonna be worth $20 probably.
Oof. Yeah, I don't see it going much lower than that, but
that's interesting. So yeah, I don't really know. It's still hard to grade those base cards.
Yep. Speaking of base cards, I got like a fair share of Zion Williamson PSA 10 Prisms that I picked up maybe a couple months ago, just as my value play, right? And just thinking like everyone's crapping on base and whatever, and like to me it is what it is. So I picked them up probably like 225ish, and now they're I think starting to push 225 to 250 again after that little dip down back up. So the question is, do I just dump those and move on, or just sell them and try to get something nicer Zion? Or do you think that can be a $300 card, even with a pop of 20,000?
I think it could be a $300 card, but when you're getting into a card like that, once it does make that move, like say he just looks incredible in his first 2 games or something, and overnight they go from like 230 to like 260. There's 20,000 people that own that card that are going to see that and go, this is my time to get rid of it. This is my time to get rid of it. And then it's like, you just, you can't do that. That's like, you can maybe do that with like his silver. You know, there's still a lot of those, but there's not a ridiculous amount. So,
right. So we'll see. I might try to sell a couple or put a couple up just to have them out there.
Yeah. Yep. Or like trade bait, you know, little teasers in a trade to get you over the top or something. You never know.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Grading wars. The grading wars race to the bottom. That's kind of what it feels like right now. But
hey, but though at least they're answering the call right now. It's like if they need to build interest, the number one thing I think we can do that has created value in the hobby is grading. I mean, maybe that's how I feel about it. To me, that's been probably my best thing in the past few years. That's helped me grow. For that to be reasonable in this market, I think people can get back to just grading things that they want to grade, first of all, then, and also, like, if they do grade something and make a mistake, it doesn't hurt as bad. So that's great.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I have a really small economy PSA order that I'm waiting on right now, the $50 level. That's in QA2, and I think I want to get hammered on it. I was unsure on all the cards.
Man, it's crazy to think the days are like, just send it, whatever, just send it.
Yeah, I actually have a Lamar Jackson, just rookie optic hollow, and you know, like those are pretty. They can be condition sensitive, just like that surface really shows when you have a blemish. And I was like, I think it's a 9, but it could be a 10. So send it for the $50 level. You never know.
Oof.
We'll see. I don't know yet. I don't know the grades. It's in QA2. So. Anyway, moving on. We were talking about content a little bit ago. Just kind of some of the negativity in content and just overall discourse. There's a lot of discussion right now. And one that I think if you're watching YouTube at all, that you can't miss, because let's be honest, the content's pretty compelling, is sports card radio.
And they can't miss lately either.
They cannot miss. They have really, really been going at influencers a lot on YouTube. They've kind of tried to start a spat with Ken Golden. And, you know, I don't know Ken Golden personally, but you can kind of tell he's the type of guy that's going to take the bait and engage. But what do you think, just in general, A, about their content, and B, kind of their overall demeanor and like the angle that they have going on right now? What do you think when you watch them?
Well, okay. Well, first of all, the Ken Golden thing, he has engaged. So, I mean, I don't know if you saw their most recent video yesterday, but
no,
sports card radio is killing. They're getting like 12,000 views in one day lately. Like, it's insane, like how much people love this stuff from them right now.
Yep.
So I guess first of all, so just to recap that, Ken Golden did take the bait. I guess he sent a DM to his brother, and just basically saying like he's kind of praising them in a way for what they do, like so, which is kind of a back off from where he was positioned before, and saying like, he wanted to have an interview with them, and and talk about it on the phone and all stuff. And Sports Card Radio, in a nutshell, basically says we're here to entertain and inform. We have no interest in an interview, because basically they just want to troll, and it's hard. It's like, so for me, long term, and I hope we don't get killed one day by them, but long term, Sports Card Radio, this is dangerous to talk about, but I don't know. I found them entertaining in the past, but they'd always push too far. Like, and I felt like there's always this balance where they push way too far. And I think there's many people for many years that probably saw them as this heel in the hobby, because they would just go on and on about how much money they have and their Rolexes. And they have like those kind of like whiny, kind of like very, kind of like just those voices that kind of pierce your eardrums a little bit when they're kind of going on and on. But through it all, like, they have a good point, but the problem is they get sidetracked really, really easily, and they love to get under people's skin.
Well, that's where I think it's kind of fun. Like, it is really serious.
Yeah.
Some of the more like investigative stuff they're doing, and that's why, like, regardless of like how they approach it, they're doing the investigative work that like nobody else seems to want to do in the hobby. And yes, they definitely are like playing kind of the heel thing, and I just think that's kind of their personality, and it does make it entertaining because they're here to entertain and they're here to get YouTube views, and that's totally fine.
But the thing is, they took a long break for a while there, right? Like, so I
Yeah,
mean, I remember when I forgot. I think it was right around the time of the pandemic or before. I mean, I heard about what they used to do. But I think when I was finally at home and I wasn't like driving had a long drive to work and all that, like I finally started listening to their stuff, and I caught up from like the beginning to current at that time, and then I hit a point realizing, like, wait, there's nothing more. They're not putting any content out. So I'm
yeah.
trying to think of when they actually started back up after this break.
I don't know, but it's gotten more consistent over the last few months.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah,
I think they're waiting for the downturn a little bit because I think when things were all roses and rainbows, I don't think it was kind of like their cup of tea. Like I think they thrive in some tumultuous times a little bit.
yeah, exactly. Well, and that's kind of like we were talking about. Just this is the time where people start turning on each other and pointing fingers and getting mad, and like they're just like happy to jump in the middle of that. But man, I'm excited. Their first Ken Golden episode was really solid, and um, I do think they make some good points in that video. There's a lot of stuff in this hobby for whatever reason that it seems like if you just wait long enough, regardless of what your previous transgressions were, the hobby will welcome you with open arms, especially if you have big cards. If you have cool
Yeah.
cards, it's like you're you're allowed to just like do the worst thing ever and like be back in like a month, just wait for things to
Well,
blow over.
maybe if you have good cards and give people good deals where they feel like, okay, well, I got a good deal from him, so he's good without
Sure.
me, you know.
But they brought up a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people didn't really know about Ken Golden if all you've seen is his face associated with all these high end cards over the last 2 years. There's some sketchy history there, and I'm sure he has another side to the story. But there's when you hear enough rumors and rumblings about somebody, there's got to be some level of truth to it, and I do commend them for trying to tell that story a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, yes, you're right. I do commend them, but I feel like they're in it purely for the salacious nature of it all. It's like I don't know if they're necessarily looking to like do a good deed for the hobby per se. I just think that they ultimately feel that by exposing this stuff, it's great for them.
Yeah, which it is. But regardless of what their intent is, I think there is some good being done there.
Yeah,
And
and they are
yes, they
developing
have,
great popcorn material for
yeah,
sure.
and I'd like to know why Ken Golden does not accept autographs from the company that he certified autographs from back in the late 90s 2000s at his auction house now. Why doesn't he accept those?
Well, I
Pretty
think
easy.
because a bunch were fake. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Well,
easy.
not by him. I think that there was some backdoor aspect to it all, like the whole scoreboard thing. A lot of those Kobe's kind of were signed aftermarket and the like.
Yeah, but they're just good things to point out. And again, I think when the times are a little bit tumultuous and not everybody's happy and making money and feel like sports cards are the coolest investment ever, yeah, some more of these skeletons are going to start coming out of the closet. And I personally think it's good for the longevity of the hobby. I don't think we want, dirty players in our space. And if people have made mistakes, as long as they just like own up to it or say, yeah, I was stupid, I made a mistake, then I have no problem. I'm not one of those people that like, oh, you're just banished forever. But it's kind of the people that we've built up a lot in this boom. Not all of them are as clean as they appear to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any of them that are like 100% clean. But honestly, right? I mean, I think everyone's got their thing, but
Yeah.
I guess some might be worse than others. I don't know.
Yeah. either way, I'm enjoying their content. So hopefully they keep doing it. We need some more investigative journalism in the hobby.
Yeah, no, they're doing a great job. I really want to find out how they're getting their information. Is it just like Twitter, and then they have, and it could just be at this point they're big enough that people are sending them information at this point.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And they've been around a while. Like they've gone to like the industry summit
Not
for
anymore.
years. Well, yeah, because they got banned. Uh, they've been to a bunch of nationals. I've heard them talk before. They ran a card shop. I don't know when, but they definitely like have a lot of contacts in the industry, and so I think they're just really well connected. And it's a smaller industry than you think. At least
Definitely
I
is.
for like I didn't realize that until pretty recently that everybody knows each other.
Yeah,
Not everybody, but you know what I
a lot
mean.
of the players. I mean, well, that's what I think he keeps referring to as the good old boys club. It kind of
Yeah,
is like at the top. There really is. It's definitely a rubbing shoulders with the guys you like and making this circle. The guys kind of feed each other's companies. I mean, but it happens in many industries, right? But I
yeah,
think in particular, it feels very small at times.
yep. All right, well that's enough of a commercial for them. So a little bit of a longer discussion this week. We won't go super long on it, but we just wanted to talk about what Joel has aptly termed the junk show era. Is it here? Do we have a junk show era on our hands? We bring this up just because there has been a lot of discussion about just show attendance and activity being down over the last couple of months. And it's not just small shows, these are big shows. Dallas a few weeks ago. And then this past weekend, I feel like a pretty there was an openness and transparency from people that attended both the Las Vegas show and the Midwest Monster, which is a show outside of Indianapolis, 2 day show, that they weren't very good. The Vegas show sounded really poorly attended, and based off of any sort of footage I've seen, it doesn't look good for a venue that large. And the way it was promoted, it was promoted as a big show. And the Midwest Monster, from me, anecdotally, doesn't seem like it was quite as bad. But they originally did that show during the summer, smashing success. A lot of people were really jazzed about it. And then this one, it just seemed like it didn't even compare. So, Joel, what have you kind of just seen both this weekend and in general? Why did you come up with the term the junk show era?
I'm trying to think back. It sounds too catchy for me to come with that fully alone. Like I wonder if they said on crossover or something like that. It must have been, or maybe like I want to give Chris. It could have been Chris HOJ that mentioned something at some point. So who knows? Maybe something in there. So I don't want to take credit just yet. It could be out there somewhere, and
Yep.
maybe from those folks. But I don't know. This weekend, well, there's two things. I think first of all, Vegas is not a great place for a card show. Like what have we seen to have a supporting community that can go to that show? To me, Las Vegas in has historically been a place where we have industry events. So meaning dealers, stores, people that are the who's who of the industry go and attend this event. So it's not necessarily about the necessarily selling to people per se. It's about the events. It's about the panels that they have for people to talk, etc. I know that was last weekend, but having a show following last weekend, I think there might have been also confusion on what this event was versus the weekend before. And just going to Vegas in general is expensive. We can't suck as much money out of card people to do all these things, especially when money is getting a little bit tighter. Like, who wants to waste all their money on travel? If I just want cards, I don't want to spend $2,500 to travel when I could be spending $2,500 and getting a nice card
Yeah.
instead. So that's my thought on that show. On the Midwest Monster, it's kind of funny. We were at the show that was directly affected by the Midwest Monster previously, right? We set up at the Rosemont show, and there's great curator, and those folks made some funny content around that Rosemont show, and we actually saw them kind of running around the place. But basically, the Chicago show was pretty bad. That was around that Midwest Monster because there was so much activity going towards the Midwest Monster. We had a bunch of people that were bailing from the Rosemont show going to that Midwest Monster show, which was 4 hours away drive from where we were at. I think Eddie from Investigard, I feel like I've been dropping name after name after name,
Yeah.
made a really great point on a video the other night, because it comes down to marketing. We These shows are, of course, going to be full of dealers and people. We have tons of dealer to dealer sales and the like, and that's been a part of the lifeblood of the hobbies. Setting up early at shows, being able to sell to other dealers, just being able to clear inventory, buying other inventory and the like. That gets great to a point, but right now we need collectors in to buy and be able to attend these events.
Yeah.
And in my mind, were these shows set up for success, to have great attendance, to where they marketed just as well as the previous shows? I think I even brought up to you about the Midwest Monster. Like, you and I had confusion about which weekend was that show versus the Indiana show versus their other show that they had. And I went to their website and I got confused a bit by which one was which, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there was a number of things that played into it. And then on top of that, you have two big shows on top of each other.
Right.
So it's just, I think there's a lot of factors playing into it on top of what we all think is like the scariness of the card market and the economy as a whole.
Yeah. I mean,
to me, it's not just about that. I think when cards are worth a lot less, people are still around. I mean, we may have been a smaller crowd. I think the loyal people will still go if the show fits their schedule. It's just there's less incentive to do too many of these right now.
yeah. I mean, what other reasons do you see just as an overall like reason why there's a decrease in attendance? Because I think, like you were just alluding to, there is it just the correlation of card prices and people feel like, what's the point of going to a show? Just the market's down, and oh, by the way, my cost of travel is too much. I don't want to drive. Like, what other factors do you think are there?
I mean, you even say it a lot. Like, what's the value of my time? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to go to a show, like in the past, it might have been completely worth my time to go to a show. But if sales are down at shows, to me, there's other things I can do. Like, I can just list online, or I can
Yeah.
find something local that I can do. I can probably meet up with some collectors that I know locally, and we can get something done. Like, I don't need to travel 4 hours to get to one of these shows or fly somewhere.
I think that's a good point, and one where I think this could not like spell the death of these people trying to build up these bigger shows that people travel to. But I do think we're going to see some of them maybe go away and things start to get like segmented more regionally, which isn't a bad thing.
Not at all. I
Yeah.
think we were growing fast for how fast the industry is going. Guess what? We need to slow down a bit because the industry is slowing right now.
Right. And like you were saying, I think some of these shows almost just are turning into, or at least from the outside, it looks like a bunch of influencers and high end dealers flying to some random place to have their own show and just to buy and sell to each other. And like, it's kind of stupid. Like, what like that has to like end at some point, because like all those cards just like recirculating through the same people, or it just gets to be this like stalemate where like nobody's really buying or selling, and then you don't have real customers coming in the door, and everybody's just frustrated.
I don't know, but maybe it's not the end of it, because what if those events are like, if you are one of the who's who, you go, you get your cards, and we get back to the point where you put them on eBay and you can actually make a good margin, or whatever,
Yeah.
or you send to an auction house so you can actually make money. Again, because you're saving someone the time from going to these shows, and I can justify, say, like, I didn't spend $2,500 to go to Vegas. Instead, that guy paid $1,000 for that card. I can pay him $1,500 for that card, and that's fine.
Sure. Yeah, maybe. And that is one thing I heard. I watched a 502 Frank YouTube video on the Midwest Monster. I listened to Northeast Ohio Sports Cards. He had talked to some people that went to the Midwest Monster, and I did hear multiple people say that it felt like people were actually willing to work a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key part for me, is like when you talk about a good use of my time. I feel like for the last year, a lot of this like mentality of like, oh, well, my cards sold for this much last year, I'm still trying to get close to that. like not accepting what was happening. These people were traveling around and setting up at these shows, and for me, it was like, okay, like yeah, I can go to the show and like try to pick up some cards, but ultimately, if the people in the room just still feel so insulated with the success of the last couple of years, and they're unwilling to take a loss on these other cards, then like yeah, why would I go? Like I'm better off just like looking at every auction house and buying cards off of there because I can actually get better deals. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, then it turns into like, okay, well, I'm going to the show more to just hang out. And while that's how it should be, if you are trying to run this like a business, then like, no, it's not a good use of my time to go spend 8 hours at a Rosemont show if I can't get any deals done because like nobody wants to actually make a deal. Everybody wants to trade or they don't want to sell things at a loss. It's just yeah, it gets frustrating and it has made me not really interested in traveling or going to these big shows.
Yeah, it's funny because I think you came in around 2019, right? Or like we're like active around that 2019 mark,
Yep.
right? Before that, I feel like we're getting a little bit back to what it was before that. Um, Not completely because I think there'd always be that person that would come into the show and buy and have the money to buy and maybe we get back to that. But I do think when I would used to set up way back when and I went with a good lot, like my goal was or my hope would be like, hey, one of these high end dealers or whatever can come over and buy out my table or give me a good offer and then I can restart. And my goal was, I guess, partially because I have a day job and like would be just use that and get other cool stuff. And if
Yeah.
I can get back to getting cool stuff, then I think that's enough to keep me going for a while. But yeah, I think eventually, I guess at one point I had hopes that this would be something that would turn into something I could just do for fun and maybe that would be a nice gig for me just do it for fun and travel and like. But I think that feels like less of a reality right now for that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too, like with people maybe starting to accept a little bit of the downturn and like wanting to make deals, like you were saying, going back to that mentality where there's a lot of people that like do this for fun and they're hoping, somebody might buy them out. Maybe we are going to like go back to that a little bit. And because I don't mean to say this in a derogatory way, because I do think they're, I don't know how to phrase this. What I want to try to say is like, there's this mentality of like everyone's a dealer. And I think maybe that's going to go away a little bit more. It will become more clear who's a dealer and who's not. And that can kind of like on you might be hearing this and thinking, oh, so basically you just think like dealers because they identify themselves as a dealer just should be able to like get better deals on stuff. And like, no, not necessarily, but like it feeds the ecosystem when you have a pool of people that are willing to just like get cashed out at, maybe 70%, 75%, so they can go get started and go buy stuff from another dealer. And you know what I mean? Like some of that like creates liquidity. And that's always like my argument of like why dealers are important to the hobby is they provide liquidity to the hobby
Mm-hmm.
and they generally have a network of people that they're buying from or selling to, and they're connecting cards to people. So,
Yeah.
yes, it is kind of unfair to say, oh, well, just because you're set up on the other side of the table, you have this expectation that you don't have to pay full price. I get that. And all I say is then just don't sell to them. Like
Yeah.
if you think you can get a better price somewhere else, sell it to the person that's going to pay you more. It's competition.
I'll tell you this. So your thought about dealers, I feel like I've had that thought for many, many years about like everyone's a dealer, right? Um, but I think you're right. So I think what got me to where my mindset worked with how I deal with people trying to buy bulk off me, it was the thought of how much bulk are they buying? Because to me, so are they providing me a value of even if they're not providing me the highest sale price of my items, are they providing me the value of time and listing and just having cash up front? And
Yep.
what is that like to me? So once I understood like what in general what that means to me and what that's worth and having flexibility, then it was to me it's a cakewalk of knowing like, okay, If they want to pay this and they're going to take this amount of items, to me that's great.
Yeah.
Fine. I don't. To me, it's not worth my time to even deal with it, especially if I'm not attached to the item. And I would take that money and, as a collector, I'd put that towards a nice card that I really wanted, that I really believed in, and I'd put that away. And I kept doing that over and over again. Kept putting with that other card away, and that worked out pretty well for the most part. And maybe now with prices coming down on big stuff, or the stuff that most people are going after, maybe we'll have that thing where people are like, okay, well, let me just give everything else to like somebody that's willing to do the work and make their margin like 20-30% on it, right? And I'll take that money and I'll put it into one of these big items that have taken a hit. And regardless, that's an item that I feel like I can stow away and feel great about one day, even if it's something that I just hand off to my kids or whatever it might be, grandkids, or just I'm looking for that investment opportunity. So I think in terms of dealers, like even though sometimes I consider myself like a in between dealer, I think ultimately my goal is to build up a really nice collection
Right.
if I can. But in order to do so, I like to sell things along the way.
Yep.
And I'd like to see it do well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just interesting dynamics to talk about. But just kind of going back more to like the general topic of shows, like, what do you think improves just shows going forward and like people's perceptions to get excited about shows again?
Okay, so I think local shows, whatever. Like sometimes local shows get on top of each other. I know that they can't coordinate. I think if you have a regional show for a weekend, it should be the regional show.
Yes.
And those people need to talk. Like when you region being like Midwest, right? Or like say if you have a California show, maybe that shouldn't compete with Dallas or something like that. You know, where there's
Yeah.
at least you feel like they're at least on the same side of the U.S. Um, I think some of these bigger shows need to talk to each other. Is really what it comes down to. But I think local shows, it is what it is. There's just too many promoters, and I think some of that stuff will just kind of work itself out in time. Like people will just naturally choose. Like I know, like when a dealer I like or I deal with a lot is at a certain show. Guess what? I'm going to go to the show where that dealer is at because to me it
Yep.
doesn't matter what location it is. I want to deal with that guy. I'm going to go there.
Yep.
you know.
And that's almost like the argument for almost like more informal shows, like pretty much like the idea of like a trade night of just saying, hey, there's this venue, everybody's kind of equal there. Nobody has showcases. Everybody like just shows up and hangs out at whatever Friday nights at this place in a major city. Like having like that like standing place where people can know like if I just want some card action, I can go to this place and like kind of like hang out because I think that's like one part of shows that I do like the social aspect, but like that formality of like the showcases, kind of like the dynamic we were talking about before of like the dealer versus the non-dealer, like the trade night kind of eliminates that barrier, and it makes it more like social and about hanging out and actually a community as opposed to just like buying and selling. Definitely like it's the reason why people are there, but also like it's about hanging out.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard because I think for me, my one fear of entering this random trade night is, am I safe? And what am I going in expecting? And I think there's that fear of, well, I guess being let down first of all, and then also being um, jacked. That would be another thing, just
Yeah.
having someone come after me. So I guess if there's a way that we can guarantee safety, like how do we pick like a good location for these trade nights? How do you make sure that you're safe and you're protected at those kind of events? Um, but it would be great if we got to a point. Maybe if they don't have to be at night. I guess it'd be nice to have an occasional one that's an evening where you can have a drink or something while you're trading. But you have to trust people to not spill beer on your cards. That's the hard part.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a thought. I feel like that's like a good piece of like a healthy local ecosystem if you can have those sort of things. And to me, that's where like I'm gonna say it. I don't care that the card shows in the Chicago area are very disappointing, and I feel like that's where the card shop that can host a thing like that seems like the biggest no-brainer, yet nobody's done it because, as you
Well,
know, well,
go
they
ahead.
have done it in the past. They have
Yes,
done it in the past.
I think we haven't gotten back to it.
Yes. Because as you know, if you show up on a Friday night to a trade night and you're having fun, and then there's some energy, and all of a sudden you see people ripping boxes or ripping packs, you're gonna want to jump in too. And like, there's so much like other money that's just like made by the shop just by hosting this thing, and like, it's good PR. It shows that like you're a part of the community. To me, that's like slam dunk, and I don't know why we don't have something like that here.
Well, I think the wax prices were a barrier in it, big time, because especially when the expectation came before, like 2019 and before, you could buy a box, like a nice box for like $200 or less, um, and those same boxes turn out to then be $1,000, $2,000.
Yeah,
I think that, to me, it's like I hate the idea of ripping in a shop when I know that I can buy one pack for what I used to buy a box for. It's stupid.
sure.
So I think if this time maybe it'll allow some of that because we have to think outside the box. Pun wasn't intended, but
Yeah,
we had to start thinking about like maybe trade nights can then start having better packages as wax comes down. And along with that, you can start having events with that. People come out, people start ripping, new product gets opened,
yeah.
things get going for grading. All of a sudden, the ecosystem gets rebooted, and I think we need to reboot a little bit.
And I think maybe to make it not hurt as much is like in person breaks. I think could be really fun. Like I've done drafts before with some friends. Like, well, I don't know, those. It just seems like you get creative if you're a shop to bring people in the door, have fun at a trade night, and get a little bit of excitement of watching people rip something.
And we need products with big hits. I think that's another part of it too. You need to be able to have a product that can be broken in that kind of setting that gets a wow factor. You need a big card to come out. So we need to have things priced at a point where you can have a really big Luka patch auto come out, or a really big, uh, Steph
Yeah,
Curry patch auto, or whatever it is, Julio Rodriguez card come out.
yeah. That's where I'm not as hopeful on some of that high end stuff getting reasonable yet, but who knows? We've been we've been surprised at the downfall of a lot of other segments, so who's to say wax couldn't be next?
I mean, it could be some of that. I think it all depends on singles and the like. So I think we sing it a lot with this current year with prices, just things just kind of sitting out there. People are talking about closeouts actually happening.
Yep.
So I mean, it's it's meaning I think it's good. I think a few closeouts will help.
I do
Um,
too. I actually think I saw today Panini Immaculate Collegiate first off the line ran at a Dutch auction and it hit the floor
mhm.
and still there. So I think we're going to see more of that.
And I'll tell you, the past I've loved that product, and I hemmed and hawed about it, and ultimately past just feeling like there's just too much going on. But that's always been good for me and been fun. I think the thing that made me not go for it was because they're advertising that's all sticker autos, which to me is kind of a big detractor. It's always been an on card product, but
And just this class for
yeah,
football. It's like, to
or
me
and
now,
basketball.
yeah,
So
just
specifically for football, it's rough.
real rough.
Yeah.
Real rough. Yeah.
So that might be. I guess I'm trying to think of where I heard this thought, and I agree with it. Is maybe this class being weak is good for the hobby because box price will be down and people can still pull their legends like Brady and whatever it might be, right? Peyton Manning or whoever, and you get these products that are priced better because the rookies are not like super stellar, but people have a chance to then now chase vets again, and
Yeah.
maybe that'll help get some juices flowing and get some rips going.
Yep. Yeah. Well, let's close out this portion on shows to be positive and say, are there any shows that you're looking forward to kind of to round out the year? We are in the last quarter of the year now. So anything that you're looking forward to or you planning on hitting, even if it's just local stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I still plan to attend shows when I can. I think I try to choose in between, just trying to make sure that life happens too for me. But I think for sure I'm going to make time for the Rosemont show. coming up to Chicago Sports Spectacular for sure. I think I've always had grand hopes of making out to Dallas. I don't know if that's going to happen this year, but I hope soon. To me, I still feel like these are still targets I have. If I have the money to make some of these trips, I still want to do it. So
Yeah.
I'm still looking to make some of these grand ones, but I think this year might just be the same old, same old.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be at Sports Spectacular next month, and then I've been tempted. I've heard some pretty good things about this Nashville show. It's coming up at the end of October. I think it's Halloween weekend, but like you said, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth my time right now, especially since I'm specifically telling myself not really to spend money.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But yeah, Chicago Sports Spectacular. That's always a big one. The November show I feel like is good usually, and I think that'll give us a good pulse on how people are feeling, because like to me, my perception was prior to Dallas becoming a thing, this was like the show that wasn't the national. Twice a year, big regional show. Always felt like there's people that are flying in for this and kind of making a big deal about it, looking forward to it.
Yeah. Do we know of any competing shows that weekend?
I don't, and we should look, but
because if there's not, then I think
not.
that this would be a good test, right? If there's not competing shows and this show is slow, then I think that says something. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But it's also that time of year. But anyway, I think that, and then I think the Luddick shows we're going to keep setting up, and I think that's been great. Solid enough. I got some good sales out of there.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's all I've got. Anything on the docket for you this week?
No, I think just maybe list a few things, looking out for PWCC next week to talk about, to see if I can actually win something.
Yep.
I'm still losing everything because I'm still waiting out for that one good bid that gets me a sweet card. Seems to only happen on cards I sell that everyone gets a steal on, right?
Of course. Yeah, I've got nothing big going on. I will be at a local show in Addison, Illinois in 2 weeks, and that's really about it. Just selling through stuff, watching the market, and doing my thing. All right, I think that's enough. If you have listened this whole way through, congrats, thank you, and please leave a comment, like and subscribe us on YouTube, and check us out wherever you get podcasts. We appreciate any feedback, any at all. So hopefully we will hear from you guys soon. Talk to you later, Joel.
See ya.